from sort of a standing start in February this year, we're now at the point where we've got a target ready to drill, and it's so well defined in space that all we need is a single diamond drill hole to know if it's nickel or something else.
Hello and welcome to Assay TV. Today we're talking with Mark Bennett, who is the Executive Chairman of S2 Resources. S2 Resources is an Australian greenfields exploration company looking for company-making discoveries in Australia and around the world. Mark, great to see you today. I'd like to start things off. You've recently released some news from your Fraser Range project. You've done an electromagnetic survey there, showing some interesting results, which is getting people talking about the possibility of a repeat of the Sirius Bollinger project. Early days on that one. Tell us a little bit about what you found so far.
Sure. Yeah, it is early days. We've actually progressed it surprisingly quickly. This ground, after Sirius and the takeover by IGO, we weren't in the Fraser Range for a long time because it's wall-to-wall tenement coverage. But early last year, 4 blocks had to be dropped by Mark Creasy, and we applied for them, as did, I think, up to 15 other applicants in some cases. So those blocks went into a ballot where the mines department warden pulls a number out of a hat, and we won 3 of the 4 ballots, which was the first bit of defying the odds for us, I guess. So that went through a sort of grant process, and they were granted in late January of this year, and we got on the ground. We started doing some general desktop work and initial reconnaissance. We then defined an area we would do an electromagnetic survey where we thought the most prospective ground was, which is usually the first of many steps, including geochemistry and air core drilling and things like that. But from that very first program, we identified a rip-roaring electromagnetic anomaly that is pretty large and pretty strong, which is very convincing in itself, but somewhat scarily, it's very reminiscent of the electromagnetic anomaly that we found in the early days of Sirius that led to the discovery of Nova Bollinger. So from sort of a standing start in February this year, we're now at the point where we've got a target ready to drill, and it's so well defined in space that all we need is a single diamond drill hole to know if it's nickel or something else. Conductors can be various things, but one of the options is it's nickel sulfide, and the fact that it's the same size, magnitude, shape, orientation, and everything else you can think of as the Nova anomaly, it's looking pretty interesting. So we're hoping to do a heritage survey within the next few weeks, and once that's cleared, we can get out there with the drill rig and get a pretty rapid answer and shortcut all those other intermediate steps of exploration.
I noticed in your announcement you were very keen to stress the fact that it could be something else as well. You mentioned, sort of graphite and groundwater and stuff. So you wanted to, urge caution and make sure that people aren't getting too excited until you've actually managed to put a drill through it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of companies, and the Fraser Range has been a good example of that, following the success of Sirius, where you can do geophysics and come up with an anomaly, and if you twiddle the contrast button on the computer, you can make that anomaly look better. But most electromagnetic anomalies are sourced by things other than nickel sulfides, whether it be graphite in the rock formation or hypersaline groundwater, anything that conducts electricity. And you can sometimes drill massive sulfides, but there may not be no nickel in them. So an EM conductor isn't a home run, but third base is pretty well loaded now. It's a case of finding out which alternative it is, and you there's nothing you can really do to try and be smart and pre-guess that. So it's just a case for the truth machine to come in and drill a hole.
We'll all be on the edge of our seats until that point. But you've also got some other projects out in WA. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing there.
Yeah, sure. We've been exploring in various places around the world, including Nevada and Sweden and Finland. But we were conscious that we were wanting to get more ground back in Australia, and preferably Western Australia, for a whole number of reasons. And we're doing some prospect generation work up the west coast of Australia. And at that time, Chalice announced their discovery of what looks to be a big nickel copper platinum group deposit, only 80 kilometres out of Perth. And we were on a similar trend, albeit quite a few 100 kilometres north of that, and had a few good-looking areas that we liked from government data, from old mapping and magnetic surveys, and pegged that ground. There were two big blocks we pegged. One of them that we call West Murchison, we've done our first phase of soil sampling, and over the target, we've got a nice coincident nickel copper anomaly with supporting platinum and palladium, and also quite a big gold anomaly as well. And that's on very wide space lines and open in one direction. So as we speak, we've got people in the field extending that survey and doing some infill sampling. And I would imagine that next in line there is to come in and do some electromagnetic surveys as well. And hopefully that'll give us some drill targets there this side of Christmas as well.
And you have sufficient cash to carry out all these activities?
Yeah, we've got roughly $14 million in the bank. We recently did a capital raising, which was only the second we've ever done as S2. And that was very well supported. We had a substantial shareholder who fancied getting a bigger chunk of us. So they ended up with 14.5%, with a company called Jupiter, which was formerly known as Merian or Old Mutual in London, and another very well-respected investment fund in Sydney, Paradise, came in as a substantial shareholder on that as well. And those guys have been with us since the Sirius days. And we're lucky in that when we spun S2 out of Sirius, we brought the shareholders along with a pro rata distribution. So they've already won the lottery once, and they've got essentially a free ride in S2 this time, and that translates into a pretty sticky, loyal top 20 set of shareholders, and ultimately into us being able to raise money pretty well and on good terms when we need to. But one thing they like, I think, about the way we do things is things we discover along the way that aren't going to be company makers and might be more modest prizes. We don't persevere with those. We jettison them and monetize them, and that also helps fund our exploration. And that's why we've only ever done 2 capital raisings, because the balance of the $30 or $40 million we've spent as S2, which is quite a lot for a junior, has come from selling things that weren't going to make our internal hurdles.
So you're looking for the big things only. What's happening with your projects in Finland?
We're exploring there at the moment. We were actually exploring for gold back in early March, and we're within 24 hours of doing some diamond drilling when the whole COVID pandemic situation deteriorated and it became apparent that borders were going to close and flights were going to be cancelled. And we had people from 5 different countries over there. And rather than risk them getting stranded, we decided to defer that drilling for the duration of the pandemic. And as time marched on, I guess we took the view, well, we can't wait forever. So we basically reorganised ourselves and made sure that we could continue that work with our local team only, which has been happening. So we've recently drilled a gold prospect called Arnie East, where we got some sniffs of gold, but still a long way to go. And we're waiting to drill another nickel target, which we have up there called Ruipus, which is quite an interesting nickel target. It's a bit reminiscent of our target in the Fraser Range, in that it's a big area with the right rocks, the right geochemistry. It's in a district where Anglo American have a monster nickel, copper, platinum deposit called Sakatti. And we did electromagnetic geophysics there and defined a nice looking conductor there as well. So that's waiting to be drilled. And that's subject to the exploration license being granted and objections being heard and things like that, which we hope will happen within 3 months and should be a favourable outcome. So as soon as that's ready to go, we'll be hitting that one as well.
Mm. And obviously, I mean, COVID did impact those projects, but it sounds like you've got things going again over there. In WA, how is COVID affecting your exploration?
Well, other than myself being stuck in Melbourne and not being allowed to re-enter Western Australia because of the blanket ban on people from Victoria, it's not affecting us at all. Everybody else is back in Perth and in their COVID bubble, so they're free to prowl around Western Australia and continue work in the various projects, including Fraser Range and West Murchison.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose when you discovered the serious Nova Bollinger deposit, you were out in a tent in the Fraser Range, and now you're sitting comfortably in your house in Melbourne while everyone else is out there doing all the hard work. So it sounds like things have worked out nicely for you this time.
Well, maybe, but I would love to be there. On drill day, there was nothing that I'll never forget the feeling when we put the first hole into Nova, and I had to drive the samples back to Perth overnight. So I will feel a bit out on a limb, I think, missing out on that, seeing what's coming out the hole, but it could be worse.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of very interesting projects coming up, and we look forward to seeing the news as it develops. So best of luck with those, and great to speak with you today, Mark.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks for the time.